Hiya friends, welcome to Kit and Brush. In this video, I'm going to show you how to draw Scarlet Witch, aka Wanda Maximoff, from the new movie Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. So grab a pen and paper and let's get started. Okay, let's start in the center of our page, toward the top of the page. I'm going to form an upside down V with just a curved point there. And at the end of the V, the lines on the V, I'm going to place just some small curves. And then I'm going to extend that small curve out into like a hook shape on each side. We're making her crown right now, so this is what this is going to be. I'm going to extend that hook shape down, forming the sides of her face. And then just making sure these are even. And now I'm going to place a short line at the end of the hook shape. And just extend that line up. Extend a line up from that point. At the very top there, that'll be the tip of her crown. Just want to make sure those are even. And now I'm going to come down toward the center, just above that V that we made. I'm going to place a small curve there. And then at the end of that curve on each side, I'm going to extend a slight hook up there. And I'm going to do the same thing, but make this one more like a curve and a bit longer. And then we'll finish off the crown by just adding another curve to form the tip of the crown. The two tips of the crown on each side. And then now let's go to the bottom of that headpiece, and we're just going to add two short lines, one on each side. And I just put a dot there at the bottom so I can kind of know where I want my next curves to go for her jawline and the bottom of her face. So just making a nice kind of round curve. It almost looks like a bowl shape right there. And now for the inside of her face, I'm going to place a little short curve to form the outline of her chin. And now for the top of her lip, and making sure it's centered with that crown, just a little wave there. Underneath that wave, just put a small line there, short line. And then I'm just going to finish up by rounding out those lips. And normally you wouldn't finish the bottom lip. I don't like to finish the bottom lip, but because she's gonna have lipstick, we can make it a little bit more pronounced. Above that lip, let's go ahead and put a nose. It's just a fat U there, a fat U shape. Now you're just gonna place 2 points, one on each side of the nose, or just above the nose. And now just extend a curve out from that point, and you're gonna swoop it over to the side of the face. Repeat on the other side. Now under that swoop, I'm going to add a vertical curve. And then now I'm just going to add a little bit of line thickness here on that side. Especially in that corner where that swoop meets that curve. And we'll shape out those eyelashes in a second, but for now, I'm going to add almost a U shape. It's kind of more of a circle, part of a circle for the inside of the eye. And now I'm going to add 2 smaller circles, one in each eye for the highlights. And underneath those highlights, let's draw the pupil. Just a small circle there. And I'm going to go ahead and color that in. All right, now I'm just gonna add a little bit more thickness to that top eyelash, the top, the top eyelid. So just adding some thickness there. And then I'm gonna add a little bit more thickness to that line on the side, especially in that corner. Now let's add 2 more eyelashes. Let's make them a little thicker too. Just repeat on the other side. I think I'm just gonna round the inside eyelid a little bit more. Just round that, give the eye a little bit more shape, but I'm gonna leave it. I'm not gonna add a line at the bottom there, but that's up to you if you want to connect that. All right, now let's add some eyebrows. So just a vertical line above each eye. And then I'm going to add, it almost looks like a rectangle. But before I finish it, I add just a point at the end. And just repeat on the other side. You can make them a little bit more, have a little bit more shape just by slightly curving that line. And then add a point at the end. And I'm gonna color these in a different color. I'm not gonna color in black, so I'm gonna leave those white for now. Now underneath her face, let's draw a neck. And I'm just lining them up with the inside lines of the eye. And then off her neck, I'm just gonna make a small curve connecting those 2 lines. And a little bit, I'll add the top of her head and some hair. But first, let's get the body finished. So I'm gonna make her shoulders here. Just a slight curve on each side. And then just sort of round it at the end. That's her shoulder. And then underneath those 2 lines, I'm gonna place a dot. Just to see make sure her chest is even before I start drawing it. I'm going to gradually pull a curve down on both sides. Make sure those are even. And then just extend them down just slightly. And then make sure they're even. And this is forming her waist right here. And then off her waist, you're gonna place a curve on each side. This is going to be the flaps to her cape. I guess it's her cape. It's like a bottom part of her cape. I don't know. What defines a cape exactly? Is it like on the shoulders? Wanda's is more at her waist. Alright, so I placed a point at the center there, and I'm just connecting 2 straight lines off the side of those 2 curves that we drew just a minute ago. So it's forming a really wide V. And then just above that, I'm going to draw another line on each side. And then just a tiny little line that separates the 2. Now I'm going to come up to her chest and draw just a line. It just gives it a little bit more definition. And then before I move on from there, I'm going to draw a small line just above or just below her neckline. I'm going to make a triangle shape. And then on the side of those triangles, just make a slight curve. And then you're just gonna, it's almost like a rectangle that's a little bit more freeform. You want it to follow her neck. And then from that triangle, you're going to make sort of another triangle shape, but it's not going to be as pointy. And then now we can go ahead and draw this line here. And you just want to extend it down to that tiny line that we made at her waist. And then go to her shoulders and just make 2 small lines. And I'm going to bring those 2 small lines down just below that really strange triangle shape that we drew earlier. And then I'm going to draw 2 straight lines extending down toward the bottom of her chest. And then extend another line from those 2 lines each that extend down to that smaller line. Now go up to her shoulder and you're going to draw sort of a wavy line just going down toward the bottom of her chest. And then you're going to make a line that's parallel to that. And then from there, just 2 straight lines coming down to her waist. And I'm going to repeat that on the other side, except you want it mirrored. Now go just below her waist and place 2 short lines and extend those out just off to the side. I'm going to put a point on each of those lines and then extend them up. And then I'm just going to place a slight curve just going toward the sides of her cape there. And then at that point, just draw a straight line and then a horizontal line inside that cape flap. I don't know what I'm calling it here. Now just below her waist, just between those 2 flaps of her cape, I placed a point, and now I'm just trying to figure out where her hips are going, or her legs. So I just placed 2 small lines just underneath the cape flaps, and then just extend those lines out. I'm going to extend out that point that I created in the center as well. Just extend them down. And I think that looks long enough for her thigh. I'm just going to round that out a little bit, sort of form a curve in the knee. And now place a horizontal curve. That'll be the start of her boots. So from there, I'm just going to extend a curve going down, followed by another curve for the other side of her leg. I'm going to do the same thing on the left side. And then just placing some smaller curves. This is just some folds in her boots, sort of where the boots meet her foot, the sides of the boot meet her foot. So just underneath those 2 small curves, I'm going to place some slightly larger curves, and then another curve for the bottom of her foot. And let's do the same thing on the other side. I'm running out of room. There we go. gonna add a line there just to show that separation, like creating a crease between her foot and her leg, her ankle. And then just making some little notches there, like where her knee is. All right, let's go do the arms. So coming up to that shoulder, just gonna make a slight curve and extend it out. Now I'm gonna come back to her chest, and about halfway up her chest, just add a slight curve. And I think that it looks good for the top of her arms. I'm just gonna put a little crease where her arm would meet her elbow. Now let's create her forearm. I'm just gonna draw a slight curve. And then extend out a small line. This will be the start of her thumb. It almost looks like a wave. And then a point where her nail would be. And then sort of a J shape. Hook shape, I guess. And now come up to the top where her hand would be, and you would just draw a slight wave and a point at her nail, and then another wave. And you can kind of create some parallel looking lines, just kind of the same what we did for the rest of her fingers. I'm going to create a little separation here where her sleeve and her hand meet. So just draw a slight curve where her index finger and her thumb are. I'm going to do a different pose for this hand, this other side. So I'm going to extend this line down just a little bit more vertically, and then toward the middle of her chest, drawing a short curve there. And then I'm going to bend it slightly where that elbow is going to form, and then just a slight curve, forming a crease. And then just bringing up, there's hardly a point on that elbow, it's more of a curve. And just bring up that line. Now I'm going to create a wave. Followed by a point for her fingernail. I'm just gradually shaping out the hand and the fingers here. Just take your time with this. And then going down to the wrist, I'm going to create another wave. Just going toward the top of my paper and a point where her nail would be. This is her thumb. And then her index finger, I'm just going to make her finger sort of coming together with her thumb. Followed by that separation again where her sleeve meets her hand. Now I'm going to go back up to her shoulder and I'm going to create some little details here. Just a little curve and then just another curve just below it. Now for the inside of her boots, just draw two short lines coming from each side of the boot. And repeat on the other side. And then just below each of those lines, I'm going to extend a line down. And then create a V at the bottom of those two lines. Just make sure it's centered with her shin. And you're doing the same thing with the other boot. And again, just making sure it's in line. All right, now I'm going to create her head. Now I'm going to create the top of her head. So between those 2 points and just below them, I'm not going to go above it. Just draw a curve. I think I'm trying to decide if I want to add a part. I think I am. So I'm just going to add a curve here. And then another curve on the other side. I'm just going to add a little line here, just if that's her hair coming through the crown. And now let's draw some waves. Wanda has very pretty wavy hair. So at the end of that wave, I'm just going to add another curve at the bottom. And you're creating these sort of wavy V shapes as you go. It doesn't have to look just like mine. You can draw as many little points and waves as you want. I'm just gonna go behind that arm, just really carefully making sure I follow that line of hair that I'm making. I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side, just sort of making sure it doesn't have to be perfectly symmetrical or anything, but I want it to look somewhat even, not like she's had a bad haircut or something. So just carefully trying to make sure I'm in line. Just adding some really rounded V's, curved V's, whatever you want to call them. And going behind that hand. And I think that looks pretty good. And then I'm going to add just some waves behind her head. Going behind her. And then let me finish off. I'm just adding a little line just to add to that part there, because she does have a scalp and it's not just empty space. All right, trying to make sure I didn't forget anything. I do plan on adding some details with the glitter above her hands, so that's probably what I'll do in a little bit when I color. Oh yeah, her crown, that's kind of important. So all these details in her crown, just add like an upside down triangle, the point going toward the bottom, and then some ovals on each side of that triangle. And here's where it gets really complicated. I'm just drawing some waves. And I want to make sure I mirror on the same side because her crown is symmetrical, like it's pretty symmetrical. So you want it to look fairly even. It doesn't have to be perfectly even, but it's very organically shaped. So you have lots of waves and curves in it. So I think you could be a little bit more lax on how you do it. If you want to look up a picture and copy it perfectly, go for it, but I'm not going to take this too seriously. I think it still looks pretty good no matter what you do. So just adding some curves, and some of these, her hair, you can see her hair and her forehead coming through. So they're sort of like cutouts, but not all of it's a cutout. So you'll see when I color, like how I colored it, what it looks like. Again, it's really detailed. But it looks really cool when you're done, so it's worth it. All right, I think I'm done. Maybe. I feel like I'm missing, I'm missing the cape. Yep. Okay, so for the cape, just going underneath those flaps. You're gonna extend some curves out, just some long curves along the side. And then I'm gonna place just a small curve at the end of that longer curve. And now I'm gonna come back up to those flaps and extend out another long curve. And I want to make it go towards the feet so it looks like it's flapping. And then I'm going to curve on the inside of that cape. Let's create some folds. I'm just going to round that out on the bottom there and then bring up a line. And then just sort of follow behind her legs. Another fold and then bring up a line. And I'm going to do something similar on the other side. So again, another fold, just coming behind that foot and just bringing it behind. And then I think I did that wrong, but that's fine. And then a curve, just connecting the two. So there we go. I think I'm done now. The line work is finished, so now I'm going to fast forward and color. I'm also going to add some glitter for some effects on her hands. So yeah, I'll fast forward through this bit and I'll see you at the end. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed drawing Wanda, aka Scarlet Witch, from Doctor Strange, and if you did, please hit that like and subscribe button to see more kitten brush videos in the future.